On an otherwise uneventful Thursday afternoon in May 2019, 15-year-old Kaylee Juga returned home from school with her mother. They turned on some music, joked around, and relaxed. Minutes later, a hooded figure dressed all in black entered the house undetected through the open garage door. A doorbell camera across the street recorded the sound of gunfire. 7 shots rang out across the usually quiet and peaceful neighborhood. Moments later, the hooded figure ran from the scene. Mother and daughter still inside, fighting for their lives. Hi there, I'm Kevin, and welcome to Just Thought Lounge. Today's case is a heartbreaking story of youth, obsession, and ultimately, violence. Let's take a look. At just before 2 p.m. on Thursday, May 9th, 2019, Stephanie Juga left her home in Kenosha, Wisconsin to collect her 15-year-old daughter Kaylee from school. Stephanie ran her photography business from the house, which allowed her to do the school run both ways on most days of the week. She and husband Nick had 3 children. The eldest, Tyler, was already out of the house. Their youngest, 11-year-old Mason, attended a local primary school. At roughly 2:20 p.m., Stephanie and Kaylee pulled into their drive, opened the garage door, and entered the house. Inside, they played some music. This was their time together at home, the time each day when just the girls are alone in the house. They danced and joked around. A few minutes following their return, Kaylee went to her room to get ready for a shift at her part-time job. Stephanie retreated to the master bathroom to finish drying her hair. Then, at 3 p.m., the sound of gunshots pierced through the noise of the hairdryer, followed by screaming. At 3:02 p.m., Stephanie placed a call to 911. Locked in the master suite, Stephanie was unaware of the severity of Kaylee's injuries. She feared leaving the room in case the shooter was still in the house. However, Stephanie believed that she knew exactly who the shooter was: her daughter's ex-boyfriend.
Oh my God, you said it's her ex-boyfriend? No, you know where he is? No, I don't think you must be for what? Please. Okay, how old are you? I'm 38, 39. Oh my God. Please. I'm getting you out. You don't know where he is? No, I'm not going to. Okay, you think he goes off running? I think. I don't know.
Stephanie could not say for certain, though police would later learn that the shooter had fled the house before the call to 911 was placed. The attack was over. Uncertain of this fact, Stephanie nonetheless left the safety of the bathroom and ran back to Kaylee's room. There, she found her daughter on the floor.
She's at the bedroom? Okay, what is the name again? Marquise Phillips. F-U-L-L-E-R? Marquise Phillips. You're a vehicle or he's on foot, you know? There's a lot of people coming. A lot. They're going to come help you, okay? Oh my God. How old is this Marquise? 15? Yes.
Deputies from the Kenosha Sheriff's Department arrived alongside EMTs at the house swiftly. They found Stephanie Juga in the bedroom with Kaylee. She had sustained a gunshot wound to her left arm just above the wrist. A second shot had hit her right side. She had nonetheless been vigorously performing CPR on her daughter. Kaylee was rushed from the house to the front yard for further emergency treatment, while Stephanie was taken to the hospital only a few blocks away. Even with the rapid response and proximity of the hospital, Kaylee's injuries proved too severe. She was pronounced dead at the scene. The Milwaukee County Medical Examiner found 4 gunshot wounds to her chest and a 5th to the head. Medical staff later speculated that even if a team of surgeons had been physically present in Kaylee's bedroom the moment her attacker fired, they would not have been able to save her. Stephanie Juga survived the attack after undergoing multiple surgeries to her arm, chest, and abdomen. As soon as she was able, she spoke to detectives about what had transpired in the moments before she was shot. She described hearing a blood-curdling scream, followed by a bang from her daughter's bedroom. She rushed to check on her, and, standing at the threshold, was her daughter's ex-boyfriend, 15-year-old Martise Fuller. She pleaded with him, stating, "You don't have to do this." He replied, "Yes, I have to." He raised his arm to his chest and fired. Stephanie escaped behind her bedroom door, though she was pursued by the shooter, who kicked it open. Then, he fired once more. Retreating further into the master's suite, she managed to lock herself into the bathroom. From there, she placed 2 phone calls, the first to her husband, the second to 911. In the house, investigators at first discovered 6 shell casings. Later, they realized that there had to have been 7 shots, and the final casing was located underneath of a console table at the bottom of the stairs. There were droplets of blood along the stairway, as well as 1 projectile. At the landing at the top of the stairs, outside of the bedrooms, debris from destroyed furniture became part of the crime scene after law enforcement blew open a locked bedroom door to ensure that the shooter was not hiding inside. He was not. Martise Fuller, if he was the shooter, had fled the scene before they arrived. In Kaylee's room, a cluster of casings in front of the mirror, having fallen into the carpet, suggested that this is where the shooter had fired. The downward trajectory of the shots led investigators to pull up a portion of the carpet where Kaylee was found, revealing a projectile lodged in the floorboard. They believed that the final shot had been delivered at close range, with the shooter standing directly above her. On the sidewalk between the Juga house and Horizon Park, investigators spotted a single bullet, the exact kind used in the shooting. They speculated that it had been dropped accidentally, likely on the way to commit the murder. 15-year-old Kaylee Juga was a varsity cheerleader. She played on the softball team and was an honor roll student at Bradford High School. Kaylee excelled in anything she put her mind to. She had a zest for life and was passionate about music and dance. In their grief, friends and family members unfailingly mentioned Kaylee's contagious laughter. She was known to start a joke, descend into uncontrollable giggles, and have everyone in tears without ever reaching the punchline. It was impossible not to share in Kaylee's joy and laughter.
She would always make a room light up with her smile anytime, or her laugh. Her laugh is, you can always remember her laugh. I can hear it all the time. It's very memorable. She was such a loving person. Kaylee loved cheer. She loved being with her friends. She was just a bubbly person. She made everything a great time.
Kaylee's fellow cheerleaders honored their friend with a special routine followed by a moment of silence. The memorial was initially blocked by the local school board, who claimed that, for legal reasons, they could not proceed. It seemed that 2 students under their authority were involved, Kaylee and Martise, and they could not be seen favoring one side.
My wife was shot, trying to get CPR to my daughter who was murdered. And they can't do a moment of silence or a 5-minute cheer? Ridiculous.
In the face of overwhelming disgust at the decision, they altered course, and the memorial went forward.
I'm glad this was able to happen, and I'm glad to see that everyone came out for Kaylee, and that I love her and that I'll always miss her.
In the immediate aftermath of the murder, the shooter, believed to be Martise Fuller, had fled. Despite what must have been a rapid and chaotic encounter, Stephanie Juga was well placed to identify him. Martise had entered the lives of the Juga family a year before. When Kaylee first brought her new boyfriend home, he was generally well received. Stephanie recalled believing he was a good kid, an athlete with plans for college and a stable future. Martise played basketball and was the quarterback for the football team, while Kaylee joined the cheer squad. They made for a picture-perfect young couple. Over the next 10 months, Martise would have dinner at the Juga household 2 to 3 times a week. He stayed into the evenings to watch movies with the family. He attended Kaylee's little brother Mason's football games and even spent major holidays, including Christmas Day, at the Juga home. But as time went on, the relationship between the young teens developed an unhealthy dynamic. It seemed that Martise wanted to be in contact with Kaylee constantly. She would keep him on a video call while at home, even when doing homework, watching TV, or messaging other friends. If she was out, he would call and text incessantly, refusing to stop even when Stephanie sat him down and explained that his behavior was disruptive to the family. He rejected her assertion, laughed it off, and kept calling. Meanwhile, the teenage rumor mill was churning on social media. Accusations that Martise was spending time with another girl found their way to Kaylee, and it seems he responded by launching similar accusations at her. The summer before the murder, a friend posted to Martise, "Weren't you just hanging out with another girl yesterday? Kaylee deserves better." On X, which was still Twitter at the time, Kaylee wrote, "I didn't do anything. Can never believe me. I swear to God. Sick and tired of this." The assumed third party wrote, "Me or Kaylee?" And LMAO, wait, but you cheated on both of us. And funny, because he was with me yesterday. At school, Martise's controlling behavior escalated. An incident in the hallway in Bradford High School took a scary turn when Martise blocked Kaylee and demanded that she hand over her cell phone. School security had to be called to de-escalate the situation and physically restrain Martise. The experience left Kaylee in tears. At that time, the school instructed Martise to keep his distance. Their class schedules were altered and an agreement was put in place. One more outburst and he would be expelled. No more sports teams, no chance of a scholarship. He was to have no contact with Kaylee Juga. In February, he violated the agreement. He cornered Kaylee once more. This time, the incident was witnessed by teachers. It was on camera. Martise, nonetheless, denied it. He was expelled and reportedly furious. By the spring, Kaylee had broken things off. She had first minimized the incidents at the school, not wishing to get her boyfriend into further trouble. But after the expulsion, Kaylee had had enough. Posting about someone assumed to be Martise taking advantage of her. "Start having respect for yourself and don't let that happen," she wrote. Her ex-boyfriend responded by stalking her every move. On Twitter, she posted, "Keep lurking, baby." He was spotted walking back and forth outside of the Juga house in the afternoons. Other times, he lurked outside at night, secretly, looking towards Kaylee's bedroom window while the family slept. And his phone calls continued, so Kaylee blocked his number. Martise began calling her from friends' phones. Sometimes he would have them speak with her briefly before handing the phone to him. Kaylee began blocking those numbers as well. When out with girlfriends, they agreed not to post selfies online giving away their locations. And they never shared their plans on social media, for fear that Martise would see it and turn up uninvited. At the age of 15, Kaylee was forced to resign from her first job at a local laundromat because she felt unsafe being alone at work. The owner of the business had made concessions for his young employee. Martise's phone number was blocked from the business phone line, and Kaylee was allowed to keep the doors locked when working alone, unlocking the entrance only as customers approached and knocked to be let in. Despite these measures, she was constantly on edge. In April, she wrote to her first employer, "To Brian, thank you for the opportunity to work for this company. I appreciate you hiring me for my first job. Unfortunately, due to the situation that has been going on in my personal life, for my safety, I will need to look for a job with multiple people around and where he will not know where I work." Kaylee went out and found a new job and hoped that her ex-boyfriend would never find out where. Immediately after the shooting, Kenosha police launched a manhunt for the 15-year-old suspect. They found that he had not been living at his mother's house for weeks, instead bouncing from one friend's home to another, crashing on couches where he could. When law enforcement tracked down his mother, Elise Fuller, she told them that her son could not be the shooter because he had been at her home from noon to 3 p.m. that afternoon, the time period directly overlapping with the murder. A friend of his named Alexis, however, offered another version of events. She told police that Martise had been at her house the night before. She had given him a ride to another friend's home at 1 p.m. that day, just 10 blocks away from the Juga household. Martise then asked to be picked up at roughly the same location at 3:30. When Alexis did so, he was wearing the same clothes, but now His white trainers were extremely dirty. And he seemed visibly upset. The next morning, Kenosha police received a call from Martise's cousin, Anshanice Andrews, who lived in Racine. She told them that, to her surprise, her young cousin turned up at her home at around 9 p.m. the night before. She allowed him to stay for a few hours to see family, but when he did not leave, she turned him in.
You know what you got to do. You can't keep waiting. You can't keep standing around here. I know you want to see your family and everything, but the time is almost up. Anything could happen to you at this point. He really didn't want to speak on the situation. I was just trying to calm him down and just trying to figure out what was going on in your mind that you did something like that. Because I know my cousin, he's 15 years old. He is not that type of person. I wouldn't wish this on nobody, and I feel like how I am with both sides of the family. I wouldn't want my 16-year-old daughter getting shot and killed in her own home, and my 15-year-old cousin might get sentenced for life. So right now, it's just, my head is everywhere.
At first, Anshanice told police only that she knew that they were looking for her cousin, so she turned him in, but that she did not believe that he was capable of what was alleged. As detectives walked her from the station, they appealed to her as a mother. How would she feel if it had been one of her children? If it had been her 6-year-old son or 4-year-old daughter that had been killed in their home? This brought Anshanice pause. She told them that she had more information to offer. So they went back into the station and sat down again. That is when she told them that her cousin had offered her a full confession the night before. Surveillance footage from the neighborhood on the afternoon of the murder captured a sequence of events that aligned perfectly with the information that Anshanice had already provided to police. At just before 2 p.m., Martise was dropped off by Alexis at his friend's home in the subdivision near to the Juga household. An internal camera captured him by the front door, dressed in dark-washed jeans, a gray hoodie, white sneakers, and carrying a black backpack. He was spotted leaving the house on a bike shortly after. Between his friend's home and the Juga residence, there was a house with a doorbell camera. That camera captured a figure on a bike, wearing a gray hoodie, dark pants, white shoes, and carrying a backpack traveling west in the direction of Kaylee's house. Across from their home is Horizon Park, a largely open green space with a playground, walking trails, and sports fields. It is lined with trees along the roadside. If standing concealed within the tree line, the front of the Juga home would be visible. Anshanice explained that Martise had left his bike amongst the trees, changed his clothing, and kept an eye on the house. His intention, he said, was only to enter and shoot Kaylee once, maybe twice. He told his cousin that he watched as Stephanie and Kaylee returned home and entered through the garage. He knew their schedule. He knew that Nick would be at work, that Mason would still be in school. From another camera across the street, a figure, now dressed all in black and without a backpack, though still wearing white shoes, approached the house. They stayed close to the walls of the neighboring homes and moved directly underneath a camera positioned in the corner of the Juga's garage before entering through the open door. Had their camera system been working on that day, which it was not, the attackers' chosen movements would have avoided being captured, at least by the Juga family cameras. After entering the house, there was a period of just over 1 minute, approaching 90 seconds, before shots were heard ringing out. At first, there was just one. 16 seconds passed before another was heard. Then, the shots continued in quick succession. 7 in total. The attacker was inside the house for a total of 3 minutes and 40 seconds. Then, they were captured running from the garage and sprinting back down the street in the direction they came, towards Horizon Park. The same Nest doorbell camera that had captured the hooded figure riding leisurely towards the park an hour earlier, taking roughly 8 seconds to pass by, now also showed them returning. The rider was moving much faster and passed the home in only 2 seconds this time, traveling in the opposite direction. The returning figure again wore the gray hoodie, suggesting to investigators that he had changed back into his original clothing before leaving the area, just as Anshanice had said. The trip back was recorded at 3:04 p.m., 2 minutes after Stephanie managed to place the call to 911. Martise Fuller was charged with first-degree intentional homicide and attempted first-degree homicide. He was scheduled to go to trial in February 2020. Before he did so, he managed to get into further trouble. Prosecutors alleged that Martise, with the help of certain family members, was attempting to tamper with the jury.
We were monitoring some jail phone calls from the defendant. The allegation is that the defendant got the names off of a chart of the potential jurors, that the defendant then memorized those names and made some assumptions about who was related to those individuals, and then began to try to contact people to get in touch with them. The supreme seriousness of something like that is that it really deals with the whole integrity of a jury trial.
At the same time, at a pretrial hearing, Martise's mother, Elise Fuller, was arrested after an outburst in the courtroom. Following an exchange of words, she was expected to be charged with obstructing an officer. Exactly what words she used in the courtroom were not reported. The murder trial eventually commenced in May.
On May 9th of 2019, the unimaginable happened to the Juga family. A person that they shared Christmas Day with, that they opened their home and their hearts to, and let him share time with their precious daughter, took her life. And he looked at Stephanie Juga in the face after all their time together and tried to take her life too. And when she tried to reason with him, he told her, "Yes, I do," and shot her twice.
Between March and May of 2019, Martise Fuller's life was in chaos. He had been expelled from Bradford High School, unable to play football, and ultimately, due to a fight with his family, he found himself homeless. He was transient. He didn't have a cell phone that had a cellular connection. He was forced to rely on using Wi-Fi when he could have internet at various locations. He found himself begging, relying on friends for rides because he was 15. He couldn't drive. He didn't have a car. During this time period, Martise was frequently frantic. He was overwhelmed. He was a 15-year-old child trying to survive.
The prosecution told their case through a story of two timelines. The first was Kaylee's reality, her attempts to get out of a toxic relationship and keep herself safe. The second was Martise's timeline, in which he grew progressively more angry over his loss of control, first over Kaylee and then over his own circumstances. This progression led to a series of decisions in the week before the murder. First, he spoke with multiple friends about acquiring a gun and ammunition. Ultimately, he obtained both. He was photographed posing with his newly acquired handgun 7 days before he decided to use it. He showed the gun to friends. He bragged about it. 3 days before, he told a friend that Kaylee had ruined his life and that he wanted to kill her. 2 days before, he searched her Facebook page, trying to locate her. He also took a bike from one friend and then stashed it at another's home, at the location only blocks from the Juga house. He began staking out the street during the day and night, staring at her bedroom window. On May 9th, the day of the murder, Martise reached out to his friend, Desiree, asking her to do that hit with him. She knew what he meant. He had mentioned it twice earlier in the week. He wanted Kaylee dead.
Did he make any suggestions about what he wanted to do to his ex-girlfriend?
Yes,
What did he say?
that he wanted to kill her.
What did you say to that?
I listened.
And do you remember what his message to you was?
To do the hit with him.
What did you understand that to mean?
The obvious, the killer.
To kill the ex-girlfriend like he had talked about the day before?
Yes. It says, "I'm so mad, you need to do that to her."
Say that again?
I'm so mad, you need to do that to her.
And what is the day and time that that message was sent to you?
Thursday at 11:52 a.m.
Thank you.
Desiree refused to take part, though she told no one about the conversation she held with Martise until after Kaylee was dead. By the time she testified at trial, she was already serving time at a juvenile facility for multiple unrelated convictions. Investigators were able to locate the murder weapon with the help of another one of Martise's cousins, a man named Dontrell Seymour. Dontrell led police to a drain sewer in Racine, where the 15-year-old had wrapped the gun in a diaper taken from a family member's house and dropped it in. Had they not been led to it, detectives believed they would have never found it. The same was true for his change in clothing, the black hoodie and white shoes that Martise was thought to have worn into the Juga house. Police were never able to locate them, though after discovering how he had disposed of the gun, they assumed these items were also likely to have been dumped into a sewer somewhere between Kenosha and Racine. There were too many to search. They did recover Martise's other clothing and the black backpack that he was seen carrying in the surveillance footage. These items were still with him when Aunt Shanice turned him into the police the following day. In outlining Martise's mindset and his motive, the assistant principal at Bradford High School testified to the behavior that had led to his expulsion. Jill Schwensen was the school's disciplinarian. She routinely dealt with misbehaving teens. But Martise Fuller, she said, was different. Even after years of dealing with difficult and even violent offenders as a social worker, Martise Fuller had scared her. She spoke of his anger over being separated from Kaylee at school. Then, after he violated the agreement to keep his distance and learned he would be expelled, he called every office in the school repeatedly, trying to reach the assistant principal to have the expulsion overturned. He would not accept her decision. She eventually hung up on him.
He was very angry with me. He called me a liar. He told me that I didn't know what I was talking about or what I had seen. He put his finger in my face. We had to take a break for him to take a walk. Ultimately, we had to call Dad to convince him to sign it.
Did his father come or did he just talk to him over the phone?
He spoke to him over the phone. I had told both students that I was going to split them up. They had several classes together, and Martise did not want that to happen. And there was a day during his suspension that he was calling every office in the school building, trying to get to me so he could convince me not to change their schedules. Students are usually not very happy with me when they meet with me because it's my job to do discipline. However, this was an extreme case for me. I was scared.
You were scared of Martise?
Yes. I explained to him that this is what was going to happen. He kept trying to tell me that that's not what Kaylee wanted, that that's not what he wanted, that it wasn't as bad as what I thought. I ultimately had to hang up the phone on him because he would not stop talking.
Martise's defense team tried where they could to poke holes into what seemed like an airtight case of his guilt. One suggestion was that Stephanie Juga, in the chaos and trauma of the attack, had misidentified her daughter's ex-boyfriend as the killer. Because of the ongoing conflict between him and the family, it would have been natural to assume it was Martise that she had encountered outside her daughter's room, even if it had been a complete stranger, they argued. After this identification was made, investigators had not explored any other suspects. Stephanie Juga's testimony, however, was compelling and did not leave much room for doubt.
And I went running out of my bathroom, through my bedroom, and stopped in the doorway of my bedroom. Facing me was Martise with a gun.
Did you say anything to him when you saw him?
I did. I stopped in my doorway and I looked at him and I said, "Oh my God, Martise." I said, "Please, you don't have to do this." And he looked at me and he said, "Yes, I do."
Stephanie explained how she tried to render aid to Kaylee, but it had been too late.
So then I tried to start doing CPR as best as I could.
And was that, were you able to do that having been shot in your own wrist?
At that moment, it was very painful, but I didn't care. Trying to save her was more important.
Did your daughter die as a result of those shots?
She did. Yes.
Right there on the lawn? Or earlier?
I think she died in her room.
Aunt Shanice told jurors about the confession her cousin made to her on the night of the murder. It was strange, she said, that he had arrived at her home that night at all. He was family, but they had never been very close. When he began telling her what had happened, she just listened. Then she called the police early the next morning.
The detectives was telling me to put my daughter in their shoes and to see how I would feel about, something happening like that to my daughter.
Do you remember what additional things you told the officer at that time? So what did you say that the defendant, Martise Fuller, had told you about what happened at the Juga house that day?
Well, he told me that he was watching her house for quite a while, and that he knew when she would be alone at her house. And then he said that when he walked in, they were listening to music, and her Kylie was in her room, and with the door cracked or something like that. And he said that he shot at her once, and he freaked out and he snapped and shot at the mom twice.
The defense did not call any witnesses. Martise did not take the stand to testify. The state closed by outlining the number of absurd coincidences that would need to have taken place for his claim of innocence to be viable. That Martise was unlucky enough to be misidentified at the scene. That his own cousin would know so many of the details of the crime before investigators had uncovered any footage or even completed an analysis of the crime scene. And that the confession she outlined to them would later be supported by so many facts.
What a horrible coincidence if you're an innocent person. And then, here's a horrible coincidence. It's a cousin of yours who takes the police, who otherwise are never going to find this gun, to a sewer in Racine where they find the very gun that is the murder weapon. Okay, so you didn't kill her, but your cousin is able to lead police to the murder weapon, which looks identical to a picture we have of you with the same gun and to what your friend says is the gun you showed him. Just days before the murder.
The last effort of the defense was to suggest that whoever the shooter was, they did not have the requisite time to leave the Juga home at 3 p.m., run to the park, change clothes, then be the same person captured riding the bike in the opposite direction just 4 minutes later. The timeline was impossible, they said. In rebuttal, the state suggested the timeline was in fact flawless. It was 0.32 miles from the park to the Juga house, which could be sprinted by a high school athlete in less than a minute. Riding a bike from the park to the house with a doorbell camera, a distance of 0.17 miles, at the speed the rider was going, would take only 30 to 40 seconds. That left a comfortable 2 to 3 minutes to change clothing, and the clothes they believed he was wearing would have come off quickly. A black warm-up suit that was designed to be pulled over other clothing. The jury returned with their verdict in a few short hours.
The verdicts read as follows. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of first-degree intentional homicide as charged in count 1 of the information. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of attempted first-degree intentional homicide as charged in count 2 of the information, dated today and signed by the foreperson.
After the verdict was read, Martise looked to his family in the gallery. The realization that at the age of 16, he was likely to spend the rest of his life in prison must have set in slowly. It took a minute or two, but he tore off his face mask and began to sob. At his sentencing hearing, Martise had his attorney read a prepared statement. He wrote that he was sorry for what had happened to Kaylee, but he was innocent of murder.
Truthfully, I am sorry about the pain you've all suffered through, but more importantly, the loss of my ex-girlfriend Kaylee that I loved too. So I am sorry. Despite the hatred that is against me, I still am sorry. But I have to continue to stand innocent because I am. And I know that I've barely showed emotion throughout my time, but in all honesty, it is because it's hard to have tears left to cry knowing my mom lost a son, one of her children too.
You sat emotionless until the verdict was returned. You seemed to have no ethos, no regret, no sorrow, no empathy. You are for you and no one else. You are a very dangerous and a damaged human being.
Martise Fuller was given a sentence of life without the possibility of parole. He is currently serving his sentence at the Green Bay Correctional Institute in Wisconsin, where his family visits often. Just over 5 years after her death, on what would have been her 20th birthday, Stephanie spoke about the loss and how much Kaylee is still missed.
Today we celebrate Kaylee, even though it's not the same. And this is our 5th birthday without her. I mean, how can it be 5 birthdays without her? And it just seems like everything happened yesterday.
And that was the tragic case of Kaylee Juga. Thank you for joining me, and a special thanks this week to Tan Lewis, Cheryl McGrath, and Dr. Morse Diaries for joining our Members Lounge. Your extra support is really appreciated. And just a quick note to anyone who uses Spotify and would like to watch our videos through that platform, we are now uploading our videos there as well every week. I'm Kevin, this is Just Thought Lounge, and I'll see you in the next one.
Content that you need, this could be a new song. Talking in the comments, they jot in a few lines. Tune in and hit like, love that, it's too kind. Feels like the whole world is online for true crime. Watch them on the run, but it's not a race. Really hard to disappear, proof without a trace. Sherlock Holmes with it, I put you in your place. Got my smoking pipe, only right, I crack another case like. I need that feeling that you brought. Who learned the lesson that you taught? To make a killing is what they saw. Found out the lounge just what you thought.